Welcome to the podcast, which is all about the world of direct response. Are we on the air? I'm your host, Sean Wilsey, and for over 30 years I've hosted shows on cable shopping networks, and now I want to be your guide into this world as we take a look at the ever-changing nature of the industry. I'm joined today by a true pioneer in the world of home shopping, Bob Circosta, who has been with the Home Shopping Network since day one. He is here as we reflect on an incredible era in HSN, which has been a staple of the Tampa Bay area for almost 50 years, and as of July 1st, 1985, celebrating its 40th anniversary broadcasting nationally. Now, as we say goodbye to this Tampa Bay institution, at least the facilities, with operations moving to Westchester, Pennsylvania later this year, we're taking a moment to look back on HSN's legacy and Bob's remarkable journey. Welcome, Bob. Thank you for taking some time to be with us today.
Well, Sean, it's always a pleasure to be with you, my friend, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, listen, when the news broke in January that HSN, and by the way, I want to make something very clear from the outset, because I know sometimes people won't listen all the way through. Home Shopping Network is going to continue. They will live on. It's just they're going to be broadcasting out of Pennsylvania, where QVC is. This is correct, right, Bob?
That is 100% correct. HSN, from the viewer's viewpoint perspective, they shouldn't see anything different on the screen at all. It's HSN. And you're right. It's just from a different address.
You know, I was thinking about that actually because I don't even know how many of the viewers of The Price is Right, which has been on the air for 50 years, realize that CBS shut down their television city about 2 years ago. You put on The Price is Right today. It looks the same as it did when they were doing it at Television City. So I think that's what's going to happen.
Consistency is key in any type of viewing habit. You want to retain the consistency because that creates a comfort level. And once you create that comfort level, then it's all positive from then on out.
Okay, here's my first pop quiz type of question for you.
Right.
So,
am I going to win anything?
Yeah, you'll win what's behind door number 2, yes.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
How many different addresses, and we'll count the radio origin of home shopping, how many different addresses have you pulled into to do your job?
Okay, well, number one would have been on Hercules Avenue in Clearwater.
Okay.
That would be the radio station, WWQT, 1470 on your AM dial.
Okay.
And so that was number one. And then we did also the local cable TV from the same location. It was just in the back of the building. And many times we do a couple of hours on radio and then run down the hall and do the next 5 hours on local TV.
Right.
Because we didn't simulcast at the beginning because we didn't know if it was going to work, if it was going to be popular. So Hercules would be the first one. Then we moved to a location called the Levitz Center.
Right.
This was a large shopping center, and right at almost at the end of the shopping center was a furniture store that was very well known called Levitz.
Sure.
And right next to Levitz was more like an empty warehouse. And that's where we moved in 1985 when we went nationwide. So that's what, 2 addresses? So Hercules and Levitz.
Yep.
And then one day, one of the founders, Roy Spear, said, want to go for a car ride? I said, sure. He said, I want to show you your future. I said, I'm intrigued. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so I got in the car and we drove to this location. He said, what do you think? And I'm looking out and I'm seeing nothing but trees and swamps and I'm sure wild animals running around.
Alligators probably. Yes.
And I'm saying, Roy, when are we going to get there? And he said, no, we're here. I said, tell me more. And he explained, in front of you right now is going to be a campus style location of Home Shopping Network. And I said, okay, I'll kind of leave that up to you to turn into a reality, which he did. And so that was on one HSN drive in St. Petersburg, Florida. So that would be number 3.
Right.
I think that's it. I think just three.
For some reason, I was thinking it was a lot more. I guess I didn't
Where
realize.
maybe I was somewhere else and I didn't know. Where was I?
Well,
Well,
I was gonna, I guess I didn't realize that you were doing the local cable operation out of the back room of the radio station. I just figured
well,
that
we
that
did.
was
Yeah, no, we did at the beginning.
okay.
At the beginning, we did not simulcast. We did two separate broadcasts, and when we went nationwide in 1985, that's when the nationwide broadcast originated from the Levitt Center, but at the same time, the local broadcast was kept separately
Okay.
and it still did its thing. Because once again, this is 1985. No one was shopping this way.
Right.
We had no idea if this was going to work or whatever. I mean, we knew it was working locally. We were hoping it would work nationwide, which day one nationwide, we found out, oh boy, we got quite a scare that day. But
Yeah.
anyhow, so yeah, it was a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but three locate. I've never been asked that in all the interviews, all the years. No one is. Leave it to Sean to come up with a new question.
It's been bugging me for a long time. It's like I gotta ask Bob. This will be the first thing I'm gonna ask because I didn't know how many.
Yeah,
Because
great question.
on YouTube, there's clips, there's video. There's a clip of John Eastman back when it was Home Shopping
Yeah,
Channel, and
yep,
there's one of God rest her soul, Alice Cleveland from a
yes,
different setting. So that was national.
yes.
And so I guess maybe that's why I was thinking there were more than there were. In fact, speaking of when it went national in '85, because again, for those that are new to this industry in the past 30 years, let's just say, you're used to the fancy sets. We have this that looks like a kitchen. We have this that looks like a bedroom and a living room. You explain in your words what the setup was like, the studio set that people saw when they tuned in Home Shopping Club nationally in the late 80s.
Oh, nationally, or you want me to go before that?
But you can go before that too if you like, yeah.
Okay, because on the radio alone, it was known as the International Suncoast Bargainers Club. That's what it was
Contradiction in
known. All
terms,
right.
yes, yes.
Yes, international, sure.
Yeah.
And then, and then it became Home Shopping Channel
Right.
when we leased a channel from the local cable company. Then it became Home Shopping. Let's see, the club. Yeah, the network, Home Shopping Network.
Right.
Then it became HSN.
Yes.
Okay. And so I think we've had more names than addresses when you think about it. But
Yes.
anyhow, so what did they see? Well, when they tuned in locally, we were in, and I'm not exaggerating whatsoever, Sean. We were in an oversized closet. That's what we were in. I'm telling you. And there was a glass window between me. I sat at the host desk, and between me, there was and the director, but there was no screening of the calls
Right.
on the air, which turned out to be the entertainment value,
Oh, of course.
because they were off the wall and wild and crazy and wonderful. I mean, it was just terrific. But that kept, everyone entertained and kept them watching. So they saw that, and I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
One day, I'm coming into the the TV studio that I'm just describing, the oversized closet, and I just open the studio door and I poke my head in there, and I hear Bobbi Ray Carter. I hear her voice, but I don't see her sitting at the desk. But I know she's there. I hear her. So I looked around the desk, and there she is, crawling through a hole in the wall,
Oh no.
carrying the next product.
Oh
What
no.
happened was, which happened while I was at home, I guess, because I didn't know it, we had a room that was filled with the merchandise, and then right next to it was the studio itself. So we would leave the one room, enter the other room to get to the studio. Well, Bobby, being the genius that she is, said, "Wait a minute. A straight line is the shortest point between 2 points."
Right.
And so she said, let's make a hole in that wall." And that's what they did. They made a hole, and now the viewer never saw it.
Sure.
Okay. But believe me, it was there. So we did that. So when the viewer tuned in, what did they see? They saw a desk and they saw me or Bobby or someone, John, somebody sitting there, and behind us was a wall that was carpeted.
Hmm.
Let me say that again. It was carpeted
I did not
in
know
blue
this.
carpet. Oh,
Okay.
yeah, in blue carpet. And on the wall was a little sign that at that time said Home Shopping Channel. Because when we initially leased the channel, that's what it was called. It was Channel 52.
Hmm.
And they would call in and we would do our thing. I had a little turntable. We had that in front of us, and we'd turn it around with the product, or we'd hold up the product, or whatever the case may be. And we would take all the orders on the air
Hmm.
on the air. I would punch the phone line and say, "Hi, you're on the air with Bob," and your first name, and somebody would say, "It's Mary." Hi, Mary, and how can I help you? Well, I'd like to have that piece of Capitamonte. I'd like to have that whatever it happens to be. I said, "Great." They all had individual club numbers. It didn't cost anything to join the club,
Right.
but you had an individual number to order by. And she would give me the number, I would write it down, and then they would have 7 to 10 working days to come to the studio and pick it up, initially to the studio. And when they came to the studio, many times I'd put them on the air and they talked about, the
Oh,
product
wow.
and oh, it was just, people would bring food. I mean, the nicest,
Uh,
nicest people in the world. And so we did that. So they wouldn't see a lot other than that when we were just local. Now, you ask when we went nationwide. Well, at that point, we thought, wait a minute, this is big time.
right.
Are you kidding? I mean, we're going from there to nationwide. I mean, this is great. So we dropped the names. I mean, we had names of the hosts. Bud Paxson assigned names to all of us like handles.
Hmm. Hmm.
We had Bargain Barbara,
Sure.
and we had Peddlin' Peg,
Yeah.
and we had and Bobby was Bubblin' Bobby, and I was Budget Bob, and and we said, no, wait a minute, get rid of those names. Now we're big time, okay?
Yeah.
We're gonna. So the sets were gorgeous.
Yeah.
They were beautiful. A lot of sparkle,
Yep.
a lot of things moving. All right, but they were gorgeous. So that first day we went on the air nationwide after being a highly successful local radio station, we ended up really not doing a lot of business.
Yeah.
And Bud came into we had a meeting afterwards, as you can imagine. And Bud came in and said, okay, we're going back to Budget Bob. We're going back to Bubble and Bobby because he taught us right then that it's the relationship to be real.
Yep.
You
Yep.
have to be yourself. And that holds true today.
Yep.
I mean, this whole business was built on a relationship and that has not changed, though I have some thoughts about the relationship has been rather limited
Hmm.
by a lot of channels, which doesn't please me to see. But anyhow, but you would tune in, you would see if we needed a model, we'd go out to the operator pool
Hmm.
and we would ask somebody to model the clothing or model whatever the product was. And we did that, so it was very loose, and we had to get back to who we were,
Sure.
our roots. And once we did that, that's when it took off at that point.
It's interesting if you watch it, and I have a lot of clips on my YouTube channel so people can see this. If you watch it, it is almost like radio just moved to television with fancy sets
Yes,
because the host was
yes.
still sitting behind a microphone at a desk. You never touched a product, did you?
Not at the beginning.
No.
Not we had to sit at the desk. The product was in a display area
Yeah.
or was held by somebody else. We were, for whatever reason, I still don't know. We weren't allowed to really we never got up
Yeah.
from the chair. I mean, I didn't wear pants for 4 years. No, no, that's not true.
No.
But I mean, we had to sit at the desk.
Yeah. Was there and again, please look at some of these videos on YouTube because it really is, it's so different than what people are accustomed to today. Was there a reason why the operators were right in front of you? I mean, there was no barrier, there was nothing. The operators were
No
right in
barrier.
front of you.
Exactly. Of course, there
Rows
was a
of them, by the
reason.
way, rows and rows of them.
That created excitement.
Yeah.
I would many times I did get up from the desk and I went out to the operator pool and I sat next to operators and did the show that
Wow.
way. I mean,
Wow.
what better way to prove that people were actually calling in? And because it goes back to that one thing, and Bud was so big on this, a relationship.
Hmm.
That's the key word. And to my dismay, I think a lot of channels have lost that today. But anyhow, it's just it's vital to yeah. So the operators were right there, and as I was on the air at the desk and talking and everything, you could hear the buzz.
Yeah.
You could hear the buzz, and as the lines increased, lighting up, the buzz got louder and louder. It
Yeah.
was exciting. It was exciting.
There's a clip I posted on my YouTube of, again, unfortunately, the late Steve Cheney doing
Yes.
a pest repeller or something. And it was one of those, you just painted the picture beautifully. There was excitement, there was buzz. And the director would do these great shots where he'd zoom in on an operator on the phone and then cut back to the pest repeller and then take the camera and zoom across all the operators back to I mean, it created an energy that
Yes.
just sucked you in. And
Yes.
that is lost today. And I don't know if that could ever be brought back. Who was it that came up? Because Carmela Richards, very many decades ago, told me one of the genius things about what was happening there was the use of the word club. And I don't know if it was Bud or Roy, whoever came up with this idea, because people want to join something. They want to be a part of a club. And she pointed out that part of the reason for that name was because this way people felt like they were joining something and becoming part of that, as you said, the relationship.
That is so correct. I mean, Carmela summed it up beautifully, as she always does. But it was a community. People talk nowadays about the social platforms, and the need to create a community. We were doing this back in the 80s.
Yeah.
We created a community, and there was never a charge to join the club,
Hmm.
so to speak. It was always free, and you would get so much off your first purchase, no matter what. But it created that community, which is so vitally important.
There now we've moved into the new building, so we're all set. What year did you move into the campus?
1985 was the first nationwide broadcast from that building,
Okay,
from that campus.
so we're in this.
Half of it. It wasn't totally like it is today.
Okay, well, that's what I was going to ask, because I never saw it until 2008. And by then, they had the
Mhm.
big tower out there. And when I explain what it looks like to people, and the analogy, unfortunately, doesn't work anymore because most of the old Vegas strip hotels have been torn down, but it was kind of like the Tropicana was, where you had the low rise buildings and then a giant tower that just shot up from among that.
Right.
So
Right.
who was doing what in which part of these buildings? Where was production? I'm assuming that management was in the tower.
Yes. Management was in the tower. The buyers were in the tower. The top executives were in the tower. But they made the executives also have an office in the studio building,
Smart.
because Roy always had a saying: if you want to understand this business, you have to be in the belly of the whale.
Yep.
And it's so true. So true. So he wanted the executives not to be in offices, not to be cordoned off from everybody. He wanted them on the floor, in the belly of the whales, so to speak. And they would be. So all the offices were not taken in the tower. But as we progressed as a company and created a lot of subsidiary companies, the office population grew. So that was the tower. Then you had the big studio, okay? And at the beginning it was just one channel, one studio
Right.
that we needed. And then we came up with the idea, how do you sell more in a 24-hour period? And the answer is to have two networks on at the very same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a cable network, HSN1, and we have a, UHF network. Bud and Roy went out and they purchased UHF stations, station 103, 102, 99, all over the country. And then Congress happened to pass a law called must carry,
Right.
which meant that any station in that market had to be carried on cable. It must carry. They had to carry it. So now station 99 became station 4, station 9. So the traffic was increased. What a coincidence, huh?
Yeah.
And so that created our second network. So we had two networks going simultaneously, and one, you do one show on one network, and then you'd run next door or across the hall, down the hall a little bit, and you do another one. That's the way it was.
And as we say in this industry, but wait, there's more, because I know at one point you had another network that started up.
Yes, yes, yes. The Spree
Yes.
network, Spree, right? Well, we had America Store,
Right.
then we had HSN Shopping Spree.
Okay.
Okay, which were very, very similar. One was born out of the other. But that was, I'm still trying to figure out who watched that. I have no idea. But it was a great place. And so that was on at the same time,
Right.
And then we had a fourth network.
What?
A fourth net. Yes, yes. Fourth network. There was Network One, Network Two. There was Network 3, which is what we just referred
Right.
to, and then there was Network 4.
Oh,
What was Network 4? What could that be? That was the home shopping game show.
Oh,
Yeah, in the late 80s
That's right.
when we did that. Yeah. So that was Network 4. So, I mean, things progressed, and nobody, Sean, ever sat around and strategized and said, here's the vision for the next 10 years. No.
Yeah.
Do it. If it works, do it again.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, do something else.
Yeah.
That's the way it was. And it worked because it was all entrepreneurially based.
Okay, so again, staying with the focus on the earliest days of home shopping, radio's been established, we're gaining grounds in television. You need hosts. You need people to come do this. There's no precedent. Nobody knows what selling on radio or television is. How did you even find the first hosts?
Well, we found it very difficult. That's how we
I'm
found
sure
it.
you did,
It
yes.
was, yes, with a great deal of difficulty. Because for the reasons that you just said, there's no training ground. You don't go to this building. Oh, you're a former host. We need you. No, that didn't exist. So we dipped into the world of sales, so to speak, a general world of sales, and we hired people who had sold life insurance. But we hired people when they came in, because at that time I was in charge of the hosts. And so I played an instrumental role in saying, yeah, you should be a host. And so I would always look for how real the person was. And eye contact was critical. But I found people from industries that had nothing to do with even sales, that were in all different types of business. So really the background did not matter as much as the individual.
Right.
Because I could teach them and I could train them the logistical part and the structural part. But one thing you cannot train is passion.
Right.
You can't train how to change someone's heart and someone's desire. That has to. So I looked for those to exist first, and then went upon that. Because at one time we had 36 hosts.
Right. Wow.
Because we had HSN 1, we had HSN 2, we had America Store, we had Home Shopping Spree, and we had all of those platforms, so to speak, and we had to fill them. So we needed a lot of people, and they would learn. No one that was hired, like you said, had ever done it before, so they had to learn. So they would sit with a few of us that had already done it for a little while, and they would observe, and they would compliment what we were doing. They would give the prices. They would come in, and slowly we would bring them along, and then all of a sudden we'd say, guess what, today you're all by yourself.
Right.
It's almost like the old story of learning how to swim.
Yeah.
You jump in the water and you learn. And that's how it happened.
And I think there's something to that. When I started at Value Vision, it was Quick audition in a conference room at a Radisson hotel. Week
Right.
later, on air for 90 minutes, just trying it out. Literally, okay, you start next week or whatever it was, and I'm thrown on air with Carmela Richards with no training, nothing. But I think there's an advantage to that. When I was in my last
Yes.
days at Shop NBC, I remember seeing one of the new hosts had the training manual. And I'm not kidding when I say it was 2 inches thick. It's like, I don't know if that's the approach necessarily to take when learning this job, where everything you
Right.
do
Exactly.
is your personality and ad lib.
Yeah, it's got to come from within. It has to come from inside you. That's how it has to emanate. And then you know why that works? That works because the product is the star.
True.
It's not the host, it's not the guest. The product is the star. That's why people are tuned in. Is it important to like the host and guest? Of course. But if the product's wrong, if the price is wrong, if the configuration's wrong, you can put the number one person out there, they're not going to be able to succeed at that particular product.
Actually, that's a very good segue. Thank you for that. Because speaking of the number one person, very possibly, very likely, Bobbi Ray has been doing this now over
Oh,
40 years.
yes.
And according to my research, there's no one else that has consistently, as an on air host, been around 40 years. QVC has a couple that might hit that mark in 2026, but for now, Bobbi Ray's the only one. So she's in a league all her own. What makes her so good? How does she have 40 years worth of staying power?
I've known Bobby 42 years now, and she brings two key elements, one being passion and one being knowledge. And when you put those two together, it creates an incredible talent.
Mm-hmm.
And without question, she is as excited today as she was on day one. When you go and do a show with Bobby, as I have recently, being a guest on the air, uh, the handwritten notes are all over the typed notes, and all the because she does her homework. She cares about the viewer. She wants the viewer to have the utmost of information in order to make a great decision. She she is just an incredible human being. And in fact, you're right. No human being. And I told this to her during her 40th anniversary. I said, there have been 8 billion people that have walked the face of the earth, and not one has done what you have done.
Mm-hmm.
And she is in a league, a class, like you say, all by herself at a certain level. And and I always tell her, I say, Bobby, when the day comes that you're no longer here, your body's got to go to science. I
No
mean, come
kidding.
on. Nobody has done this. I mean, you should be studied for years. Are you kidding? And she's just a delight. And what you see on the screen is what you get in person as well.
Yeah.
Her personality does not change. And you know, you've been in the business a long time. You know that when that light goes on, some people act differently,
Yeah.
and not Bobby. She is as sincere, as honest, as heartfelt and passionate in person as she is on the air. She's just an absolute one of a kind.
There's on my YouTube channel, and I think elsewhere as well, there's a clip of the 60 Minutes broadcast that they did in the late 80s there, and they interview Bobbi Ray. And
Mhm.
there's, because I just noticed this the other afternoon, I was watching her. There's something in her eye and her personality as she's being interviewed by, and help me, who was the reporter? Not Mike Wallace. Morley
Oh, it was
Safer.
Morley Safer.
Morley Safer.
Yeah.
There's something in her expression, in her eye, in her face, in her personality that was there then. And again, this was late 80s, as there was when I saw her a couple days ago in 2025. So I think you've
Yeah.
nailed it. It's just that passion is still there.
There's no question. And she, we had those little nicknames at the beginning when we were on radio and local cable
Yeah.
TV, and her name was quite appropriate. Her name was Bubblin' Bobby.
Yeah.
That was her name, and she just has that bubbling personality, and you go back to that 60 minutes. Those were the days when the worst thing that you wanted to hear was Mike Wallace is on line 3.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
That's
you
true.
didn't want to hear those words. So when 60 Minutes came down to do that segment, I said, I think I'm going to be off that day because I had no
Yeah.
idea how it was going to play,
Yeah.
but it played pretty well. So that was a good piece.
Yeah.
But anyhow, yeah, Bobby's one of a kind. I just think the world of her.
I know, Bob, you'll appreciate that music. That is the original Home Shopping Club music. Isn't that beautiful? Anyway, I want to go out with that because, Bob, we're going to pause right here. We'll pick it up next time, and I want to continue the conversation about what makes a good host and what makes a good guest and the difference in those roles. Hey, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss a show. Plus, you can listen to the archive of past shows. I hope you'll check me out on Facebook and YouTube under my full name, Sean Wilsey, on Instagram and Threads at @SWilsey. Thank you for downloading this edition of our We on the Air. Copyright 2025, King Bobby Productions, all rights reserved.